I like to ask people, do you seek reliability? That's what we really use the framework for, is to make sure everybody in your organization speaks reliability. We say that reliability is not a maintenance initiative. In other words, you have stakeholders across your organization. Does procurement and purchasing affect reliability? Does operations affect reliability? Does senior management affect reliability? Does engineering affect reliability? You have stakeholders across the organization. So we use the framework to ensure that everybody speaks reliability in your company. And so I decided to do this as a question, because when we do really deep work in Uptime Elements, we really work in what we call inquiries rather than in answers. We're not giving you answers. And as George and Rob mentioned, there's baking, there's cooking, there's different recipes, but it has to be appropriate for yourself. So it's more powerful for us to work in questions than to work in answers. So I thought I would give you the ability to ask me anything you might want to ask me about the Uptime Elements Framework. And so here I am. Does anybody have a question that they want to ask? Anything?
Thank you, Terry. When I look at this conference on reliability, it seems to me that it's 99% maintenance oriented. And yet we know from lots of studies and data that engineering errors, design errors, management errors contribute to the major reliability problems. How do we get there? How would we approach it? How can you approach it to help us get there?
That's a great question, Neville. And thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge about failure analysis with us and the crowd. See if I can make this laser come on. Is it got a laser? I don't know. Well, you see the yellow part of this Uptime Elements. We break Uptime Elements into 4 knowledge domains: reliability engineering for maintenance, asset condition management, work execution management, leadership for reliability. But if you notice, most of us practice that at that second to the end yellow phase, operate, maintain. And if you look at that as across that whole asset life cycle, that's an end of life asset management technique. That's the end of life. Operate and maintain is the end of life, right? So what Neville's referring to is that he's saying reliability is really made in the planning stages, in the design stages, in the business needs stages. That's where we make reliability. And so, ask yourself, do you have a seat at that table in your company? Are you invited when they're considering whether they actually need an asset or not? Are you invited to give input into that? Do we need to put a whole new compressor in, or do we need to build a new part of the plant, or can we make our existing assets do what's wanted to be delivered from a capital project? Capital projects are super exciting because at the end, the CEO gets to put in the beginning he puts a shovel in the ground and gets a photo opportunity. At the end, he cuts a ribbon, or she. Right? There isn't any of that with existing assets. So, but it's the best, most efficient assets you have are the ones that you already have. We just got back. We were earlier in the week at an organization called FIATech, and so it's the association for the design community and the engineering, procurement, and construction, the EPC community. And I can tell you, it's a foreign concept to them. They have reliability in mind, but not what we mean by reliability. So they sort of design with reliability in mind, but maybe we could ask the whole group, what are the success metrics of a capital project? So I'll give you the first one: on time and on budget, right? On time, on budget. And what happens in every capital project? Schedule slips and cost slips. And then what they do is they have to make compromises. So it's very important that you talk to whoever you need to talk to at your organization to be part of that capital project discussion, because where reliability is really made is early in business needs analysis, asset planning, design, and creation. That's where you're going to have the most impact. I forget who was doing the asset lifecycle presentation here. Maybe Marius was talking about that all of the capital cost is locked in. You can only affect about 5% of the life cycle cost after the asset is delivered. So the time to specify how much maintenance you want to be doing and what the reliability levels are early in that asset life cycle. I hope that answers your question.
Which do you consider to be the top 3 elements from the Uptime Elements, and why?
I would say one. I'm going to answer one for sure. And that's INT out of the leadership. and what that's integrity. And when we talk about integrity to people, they usually, if like we're in oil and gas, they think we mean mechanical integrity. And of course, mechanical integrity is very important. So it is important, but that's not what we're talking about. And when we're in a group of software people, they think we mean data integrity. And of course, data integrity is very important, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about integrity. Do what you say you're going to do. And then we talk about honor your word when you can't do what you say you're going to do by cleaning up the mess you make by not doing what you said you were going to do at the earliest possible opportunity. So I'm not talking about integrity from an ethical or a moral standpoint. I'm talking about integrity from a performance standpoint. I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm not the Pope, right? And none of us have integrity. So if you're out there listening and say, well, yeah, I know some people without integrity, but he's not talking about me. None of us have integrity. As humans, that's our condition. If you drove here this morning, if you're local, and you drove 55 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone, you lacked integrity. You made an agreement when you got your driver's license to follow the rules of the road. So if you wonder, and so we're always looking for opportunities to fill the integrity cup back up, do what's expected of us. Integrity isn't just, oh, well, I never said I was going to do that. If you're expected to do it, you do it, and that means you have integrity. So we look for opportunities to restore integrity. If you want to improve performance, you restore integrity. Life works to the extent that you keep your word. Life works to the extent that you keep your word. Life doesn't work when you don't keep your word. In other words, you remove performance. Performance goes down when you don't keep your word. And you've worked with people who severely lacked integrity, and so I'd ask you the question back, did that have any real effect on organizational performance? Heck yes, it did. You know it did. So when performance is lacking in any context that you're in, I invite you to look for opportunities to restore integrity in all the ways that you can. You can never be perfect in integrity, but look for ways to restore integrity in all the ways that you can, and you'll be amazed at what happens with performance. You keep your word, and your life starts working. Your life starts working, your work starts working. It's a direct connection. So I think that's the most important element that there is. Then the rest of them can all come second.
Like CRLs and CMRP and CMRT and CMRS. Where do you think all of this certification is going? And I'm not talking about the consultants who get all of the things just to prove. I'm talking about the practitioners. What's the difference between them, and where are you taking CRL to make a difference?
Well, thank you for the question and the opportunity. We get that question a lot. What's the difference between all of the certifications? I think Terry did kind of a good job talking about it this morning. Probably the major ones that affect our world are the CRE, which is from the American Society of Quality, the Certified Reliability Engineer, very technical certification, so you can do I would say statistical approaches to reliability. Very good certification if that's your business. In other words, your business is determining intervals and failure patterns and things of that nature, I highly recommend CRE. If your job is to manage maintenance, you're the maintenance manager at your company, CMRP from the Society of Maintenance Reliability Professionals is designed to show that you have the experience. So that whole exam was designed to not be from a book. There is a certification from AFE, the Association for Facility Engineers, and I'm sorry to throw around all these acronyms, but it's a great certification. It's a certified plant maintenance manager, but it's taught from a course, and then you can take the course and you can pass the exam. So it doesn't really mean you're a maintenance manager. It means you know what was in the course. That when I was on the original committee that created the CMRP, we were trying to do an examination that measured experience so that a hiring company could hire somebody with a CMRP and they would know that they had the experience. Now, that's easier said than done because at the end of the day, you have to take and reduce it to an examination. And there is no practical examination with CMRP. That might actually help that exam a little bit because at the end of the day, you're trying to measure experience, but you have to bring it down to an examination level. So, lots of people that have never managed maintenance have managed to earn that because there's great books like Ramesh Gulati's book, Ron Moore's book, that kind of unlock a lot of the knowledge that's needed for the body of knowledge around CMRP. But that's really a deep certification if your job is to manage maintenance. I started this by saying at Uptime Elements, we don't think that reliability is a maintenance initiative. So we created the CRL because we want an army of certified reliability leaders. In Bristol-Myers Squibb, you can ask Rob Bishop or Raul, over half of them, they have, I think, 200 or 300 certified reliability leaders. Over half of them don't work in maintenance. So we've been able to train HR people. We've been able to train procurement people. We've been able to train their engineers, their site contractors they've put through the certification. Their senior leadership they've been able to put through the certification. So what we're really trying to do with that is CRL is to express confidence and competence in expressing this framework. So it's sort of a new language that can be used inside a company, because when you create a framework, we go in a lot of times, we say reliability to the 10 people who are leading reliability, and it means 10 different things to 10 different people. And reliability is hard enough when you're going to one destination. When you're going to 10 destinations, it's really hard. And so, you know, we sort of use the analogy of our military service, which we have a lot of admiration for. They take 18-year-old kids and they drop them in Afghanistan, and it's an 18-year-old kid from South Central LA with an 18-year-old kid from Alabama and Arkansas, and then they put a kid in from Boston, Massachusetts. And they're completely different, but they all know the big mission. They all know the little mission. They all know what their tools do. They all know what decisions they need to make. They know what destination is. They know what they can count on from the guy on the left and they can count on the guy on the right. And they go out in a very dangerous situation, and knock on wood, they come back safe. These are 18-year-old. I don't know about you. I thought I was smart when I was 18. Turned out I wasn't all that smart when I was 18. But, you know, they do amazing work. They're doing amazing things because of that, because they're mission-driven. So we studied, and we found that 70%, as George and Rob quoted, our studies show 70% of these reliability initiatives fail to generate success. We didn't invent any of those individual tiles. Those have been around for 40 years, and they're 100% proven to be effective. It's the only discipline I know where we have a 40-year-old mature tool set that's 100% effective that fails 70% of the time. So we started to say, there's something else going on. There's something else going on around here about reliability. What is going on? Why do we have this high failure rate? Because they're great methodologies. So we started to answer that. So where we really came up with it was we do these Uptime Awards. And in 2006, I roped Jack into helping me do Uptime Awards. And he spent, 10,000, 12,000 hours, something like that doing it. He's an expert at Uptime Awards now. And we gave people awards based on technical competence against this framework. So you got a green award, an orange award, a blue award. And in 2006, that's how we awarded, how technically good you were. And then in 2007, we did how technically good you were. By 2008, we had to be dummies because we looked at it and said, all of these winners have two other things besides technical goodness. They have leadership, and we don't mean leadership at the C level. We hardly ever found that. But we found sometimes strong leadership literally at the equipment level, or leadership at the supervisor level, or leadership at the mid-level management level. And they had somebody who just kind of put a stake in the ground and said, I'm gonna make my company, or I'm gonna make my section, or I'm gonna make my line, or whatever their sphere of influence was, I'm gonna make reliability. I'm gonna create reliability here. I'm gonna call it forth. I'm gonna generate it. And then the other thing that they had was a culture of reliability. That word gets thrown around a lot, but what we really mean by that is that they think reliability. It seems you, as the manager or the leader in your own organization, you can only make 5 or 10 effective decisions a day. That's why Jack is promoting procedures, so people have some guidance to make good decisions. These companies kind of thought reliability, and they'd have 100 people making good reliability decisions on a daily basis. So we created this framework to try to tap into that. So not just to tap into, and to stop people from saying that reliability is vibration analysis, or that reliability is RCM, or that reliability is CMMS. To look at it holistically, and to tap into the leadership and the cultural aspects of reliability. That's really where CRL is all about, and that's where we're taking that. And again, I invite you to talk to the folks at Bristol-Myers Squibb. Honda's using it, NASA's using it. There's a bunch of companies that are using it. And where their results are, where they really start to get the bus moving is when they get the non-maintenance people on board, when they get the purchasing people on board, when they get the operations people on, when they partner up. I'll tell you one last story because I think they're going to serve us lunch. Is at BMS, I was at a whole different conference in Puerto Rico. I was at a condition monitoring conference. And a gentleman from the Puerto Rican plant came up to me and he said, "Hey, Terry, I just earned my certified reliability leader." I said, "Congratulations." And he said, "Can I show you something?" And he opened up his laptop and he had a presentation where he had taken I hope it's not proprietary because I'm about to tell it, but he took a pill manufacturing process where there was powder coming down into a machine that pressed pills, and they moved OEE from like 40% to 70%. He was able to recruit his team, his improvement team, because they were all already certified. They all knew this framework, and they got this improvement. Then they communicated their improvement to plant management using this language. Plant management was already certified. Then they communicated it globally. Turns out there's 30 of these sites that have the exact same process. And within 30 days, they moved the OE from over here to over here, not because there was any magic in this, but it's because they had the magic, but they had a language to communicate it. They sort of had a format and a framework to do the work in. It's like a new language. It's like speaking French or speaking Spanish or something. It's a new way to communicate, but the words mean the same thing to everybody, and the ideas mean the same thing, and kind of like that integrity talk. It's a little, you don't hear that a lot with reliability. So the BMS guys work that way. That's how they work. So I guess that's the best way I can explain it. I hope that didn't go too far afield from where you wanted to go. And with that, I think we're out of time and we're going to eat lunch, right? So please, a hand for all those great rap talkers today, and Terry Wireman especially.